Okay, welcome to Seedy Business. You are Allison.
And you are Roman.
As it turns out, we're in the new year. This is 2021, which makes this, by all technical definitions, our fifth season of this program. Of course, the first three seasons each contained 2 haphazard episodes. Then the fourth season contained 20-something episodes. And now we'll see if we're in our twilight in season 5 here.
Well, I assume everything is going to get much better and the pandemic's going to be over extremely soon. So probably we'll stop doing this.
Yeah. You know, the
end's truly in sight now. The delivery of the vaccine has
going
been
so smoothly. Yeah. So rapid. Not to bring up the McElroys onto adjacent episodes of this, but Justin does that bit about how they're winding down the Munch Squad every time they do the Munch. Right. She's been doing for like the last year. They were winding down Seedy Business, I think, in much the same way at this point, which is to say it will presumably go on indefinitely.
It's Seedy Business. It's Seedy Business.
So when we began this podcast back in the year of our Lord 2017, when we were all so innocent, no, I guess
nothing bad had ever happened until then.
Nothing bad had ever happened at the beginning of 2017. I mean, actually, I guess we sort of started recording this as distraction from what was happening then, and then we sort of revived the more frequent recording of it to distract from what was happening in 2020. But the origin story, I think, is that it was the winter of 2017, and we were thinking about what we would like to do with our garden for that year. And we thought about what a peaceful, cozy activity it was to sit in the chill of winter and to fantasize about the coming possibilities for your garden.
I mean, I'm never more excited about a project than when I can't actually do it.
Yeah, what's particularly great about fantasizing about a garden in the winter is you can have the biggest dreams in the world, but you literally can't do it at that moment. Like, the circumstances prevent you from enacting your dream in that moment, so there's no guilt in not doing it then.
Of course, it was 80 degrees here yesterday.
It was, yeah. So what are our thoughts? Like, last year at this time, you hadn't yet expanded the backyard area for gardening purposes. That sort of happened in the spring of last year.
I mean, it's still very short on actual soil back there.
It's definitely bare. I mean, it looks nice.
When I think about what I want for the garden this year, the things that I'm thinking of are mostly, like, I'm not even really thinking about plants. I'm thinking about soil and mulch and how we really need more of those things.
Well, we learned in the last main episode that spruces can grow in sandy soil, so maybe we should grow our own Christmas tree. Look, this is a time for fantasy. We'll grow
is that your wildest fantasy?
Of Christmas trees. No, here are my wildest fantasies. I want one of those lime/orange trees that our neighbor has, where we thought it was a lime tree, but then maybe now it's an orange tree. Maybe it's both. What I want is a tree that can grow lemons and limes and oranges and grapefruits.
You know, those fruit salad trees are a sort of popular gimmick. You can get those out of disreputable catalogs, I think.
Like that one with the weird neon tomatoes in it. Will they sell you one of those trees?
Probably, yeah. You can get a tree that has, one branch each of several different fruit trees all grafted onto one.
Yeah, but it's like a Frankenstein's monster, right?
Well, that's what you just described also.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying that's good. Yeah, so that's a fantasy. Do you have any fantasies besides better soil?
I think I want to try to grow cucumbers and melons. I want to focus on those.
Well, you focused on them this past year and arrived at the cucamelon.
Nope, not cucamelons. Separately, independently, cucumbers and melons.
What kind of melon?
Like little cantaloupes.
When you say little cantaloupe, what does that mean?
Those little 1 to 2 serving cantaloupes.
Okay.
Those cute little cantaloupes.
So you'd put a scoop of vanilla ice cream into.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And I mean, my watermelons got repeatedly run over by the lawnmower, so we never got a single one this past year. So I'd like this to be the year where watermelons finally happen.
For new listeners, we did not run over them ourselves. In fact, a rogue ride-on lawnmower guy came and drove willy-nilly around our yard.
But it was before the backyard garden had any sort of edging to prevent.
You then put up cinder blocks to prevent just that.
But he did it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm. Well, he loved it. He loved depriving you of melons. That was one of his primary motivations. Watermelons sound good. Cantaloupes sound good. What is the deal with honeydew melons? My family was really into honeydew melons growing up.
I feel like people in the 80s loved them, but I've never thought they were very good. Maybe I just haven't had a good one because
people in the 80s had terrible taste in food, I think.
When I think about a honeydew melon, I think about a sickly, underripe thing that's cut into chunks in a fruit salad at like a buffet or something.
Yeah, I mean, a cantaloupe certainly has a more full-bodied flavor than a honeydew melon does. What the fuck even is a honeydew melon? Hold on, I gotta look this up. All right, a honeydew melon is the fruit of one cultivar group of the muskmelon, which is in the gourd family. This group includes honeydews, crenshaws, casabas, winters, and other mixed melons. Interesting. Wikipedia says that, according to Chinese sources, the melons were introduced to China by American Secretary of Agriculture Henry Wallace, who donated melon seeds to the locals while visiting in the 1940s, probably 1944. He served as Secretary of Agriculture and Vice President under FDR. And in fact, he had founded a major seed company, which is called Pioneer H Bread, which popularized the use of hybridized corn. So I guess, I didn't know this, but our 33rd president of the United States, Henry Wallace, owned a seed company. You heard it here first, unless you already knew that, joining the proud ranks of Jimmy Carter and other agriculture-centric executive branch officials. Do you think he gave the Chinese the honeydew melon in an effort to sabotage them in the long term because it's a bad melon?
I mean, maybe they're good when they are not whatever I experienced as a child.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they tasted bad.
Yeah, so wait, why did you say, are we going to grow them? You proposed growing them, but you agree that they are bad.
No, I was just wondering if we were going to, because that's all my parents talked about as a child.
I think that people in the 80s and 90s might have thought they were like diet fruit.
Oh no, it's one of those things.
I think maybe in the way where people are like, they're willing to, I'm going to eat worse fruits and vegetables so that I can save my calories for cake and pie.
Yeah. Not going to name any names here, but I do have a family member who will say, I'm going to eat absolutely disgusting, like unseasoned, unflavored bullshit, just fucking steamed whatever, so that I can eat a lot of bread later.
I think that was the diet culture when we were growing up. That's how my grandmother often was. Like she would talk about how, she couldn't eat sweet potatoes or carrots or whatever. And then she would eat cake.
Right, because she was saving her sugar.
I think
allotment. So. Did she talk in the language of points?
She was a big Weight Watchers.
Okay, yeah, right.
And so I think she was probably the kind of person who would have chosen to eat honeydew to save the marginal amount of sugar that would actually be in a delicious and sweet melon.
Huh.
And feel...
So wait, it's called honeydew, but it's less sweet than other melons?
I mean, in my experience, yeah.
Or else you had a terrible version of it, which wouldn't be surprising either. So I need to get in that what's in the garden sound effect somehow. Is anything in our garden right now? It's the dead of winter. What's in the garden?
Then let us cultivate our garden. It's the only way to make life endurable.
What's in the garden?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's swinging wildly between summer and winter temperatures.
Yeah.
On an almost daily basis. So there's not much out there but the arugula. And of course, the sweet potato vines, which in this region should be perennial.
Right.
They have died back some, as has the chayote actually, but they're all still alive, apparently.
Well, if our garden is all arugula, that is our cat's preferred garden content. All right, so our first catalog of 2021 that we are going to look at today is the Territorial Seed Company's Spring 2021 catalog. I was sure we had done this catalog before because we've certainly read from it a bunch, but I don't know why that car is as loud as it is.
Because it's towing a person on roller skates. Or a skateboard, I couldn't tell.
That's really cool. Skitching, right?
It was, they looked like they're about to party. It was a little car that had surfboards on top. The trunk was fully open, so they could cram in a bunch of suitcases, and then they were just sort of bungeed in place.
And blast their speakers.
And then there was a guy just holding on who was on a skateboard or roller skates.
Yeah, I believe that in the parlance of Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game, that would be termed skitching. Okay, yeah, so I thought we had done the Territorial Seed Company at one point, but it looks like we just had periodically read stuff from it. We never spent an episode with it. So this is the Spring 2021 catalog. We've only received a handful of 2021 catalogs to this point, although the list of 2021 catalogs I have requested, dear listener, include. I'm going to see how many of these I can do in one breath. Got to hyperventilate a little bit to get a good breath. Park Seed, Gurney's, Harris Seed, Urban Farmer Seed, John Cheapers, Young Seed, Johnny Seed, Baker Creek, Pine Tree Gardens, R.H. Shumway's, Roar Seeds, So True Seeds, Huston Valley, Vermont Bean Seeds, Annie's Heirloom Seeds, Select Seeds, Wilhite Seeds, Burgess Seeds, Burpee, Seeds from Italy, Kitazawa Seeds, Morgan County Seeds, which might be a Christian company, High Mowing Organic Seeds, Wayside Gardens, Adaptive Seeds, Siskiyou Seeds, Dixondale Farms, Any Seed, Totally Tomatoes. That's it. I only got about 2/3 of the way through it. So those are some 2021 catalogs yet to come. But this is it's the first, well, actually, we already did a couple 2021s, but this is our first 2021 we're doing in the new year. Territorial Seeds, it was founded in 1979. It's family-owned, as so many of these are. It was founded by Steve Solomon, but has been owned by Julie and Tom John since 1985. It's out of Cottage Grove, Oregon. A lot of these catalogs, as we've said, seem to be out of the Pacific Northwest or out of New England, probably because that avails you the highest number of types of seeds to cultivate, I would think. Their first seed production crops were grown in the backyards of all their neighbors, which is a nice dream, actually, for community gardening, community self-sustaining practices. They first grew an open-pollinated Brussels sprout, an heirloom cranberry bean, and a Lorraine fava bean. According to their website, the mail-order seed business they operated in, quote, a drafty warehouse where customers waited their turn on the telephone party line, and neighbors who seasonally helped in the warehouse took turns chopping kindling to keep the wood stove stoked. It is a very charming idea. Would have loved to be on that telephone party line in the 80s. Is a party line where everybody could talk to each other?
Yeah, a party line is where everybody who calls in, they're all on the same line, I think.
So they were taking orders by having everyone call a telephone party line, like queue up, and then they would sort of take each order as it seems like that would be chaos to try to take orders on the telephone party line. I mean, everyone else would be having phone sex, of course. So they could occupy each other with phone sex while you took their seed orders. But I don't know how it wouldn't be a lot of people talking over each other, where someone was trying to order seeds and somebody was talking about like sucking somebody else off. Just seems like chaos.
I mean, I thought the main thing about party lines is it would be like one phone number that served your whole neighborhood or something.
Right.
But I guess this company also had, just one number, and then any number of people could call into it at the same time.
Where we were born in the 80s, this is sort of before our time, so maybe we don't understand it in the same way that someone born in the 90s wouldn't understand a chat room or whatever.
No, I think you got it. I think you got it exactly. That's what was happening.
All right. Okay, so this catalog, I wouldn't say it's a particularly whimsical catalog, but it's certainly a very nicely and professionally designed one. The cover, which I'll put a link to in the show notes, is, do you want to describe it?
I guess I would say so it's a little girl with red braids holding a bountiful basket of produce and offering it to an older woman in a hat and apron. And I would say that their faces look really inspired by Norman Rockwell.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Like, I don't think the overall style of the image looks like Rockwell, but I do think that the people in it are drawn from Rockwell.
That's dead on. I would agree with that. Although I will say that little girl, we're only seeing them in profile in this drawing, but she also sort of looks like the Mad Magazine kid. It's somehow both Norman Rockwell and the Mad Magazine kid.
Yeah, a little bit. I would also say that the child and the adult resemble one another strongly enough that I think we're meant to believe they're grandmother and granddaughter or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's well done, definitely. What's striking to me about this picture is that, so there's a white picket fence in it, which I guess is also sort of Norman Rockwell, but the grandmother is outside of the white picket fence. The child is inside of the white picket fence, which is where the garden is. So it looks to me like this child has done all of the gardening labor and is handing off the fruits of her, let's just, for shorthand, say child labor to her grandmother. She's done all the work. The grandmother is going to reap the benefits. It's also, let's just say, to further prove my point here, the child is not wearing gloves. The grandmother is wearing gloves, but they're not gardening gloves. They look like they're white, first of all. They look like spotless white gloves.
But they're floppy like gardening gloves.
Yeah.
They're white gardening gloves.
But they're spotless, as though to further drive home the point that she has not done any gardening work, but her granddaughter has been coerced into it. So what do you think about the general design of it and organization internally?
I mean, just visually, I think it's very nice. The only thing that I keep finding slightly confusing about the layout, so it's a 3-column layout, but sometimes you're meant to read left to right across all 3 columns, and there's no visual indication that lets you know that's what you're supposed to be doing there.
As opposed to top to bottom.
Yeah, as opposed to top to bottom in each column.
I see.
So, for example, on page 93 with Swiss chard, the Swiss chard heading, which is sort of a shaded box, and it has information about how to grow Swiss chard. And then, so that box is in the first column, and then under it are the first couple of entries. The middle column is all entries for different Swiss chards. And then the last column is beautiful pictures of the different Swiss chards.
Yeah.
So that layout makes sense to me. But then if you go to, for example, page 137, they've got some fruit trees. And those fruit trees are lingonberry, citrus, and kiwi. But in each case, you're meant to read, so the heading for each, the heading for the first column is the lingonberry heading, then the citrus heading, then the kiwi heading. Then the middle column is first the only entry under lingonberry, then 2 entries that are citrus trees, and then finally an entry that describes their only kiwi offering. And then the third column is pictures of each of these 4 plants.
Yeah, drag them, baby, drag them.
So for me, because there's not a clean visual line, like each of the lingonberry, it's at the top of all 3 columns, but it's not the same height.
Yeah.
Each one, the heading, the product description, and the photograph are each a different size.
Yeah.
There's no visual indication that I should be reading left to right there.
Yeah.
So I found that to be confusing.
Yeah, no, that's an extremely fair point. And again, the meat and potatoes of this podcast is design criticism.
Is it?
I think so.
I thought it was all that stuff you were saying about phone sex.
Okay. What if we make a party line? We'll look into it. Yeah, I mean, that's a well-received point to my eye as well. I'll say a thing so this is a catalog that it doesn't have any like drawn. Some of the catalogs we like most have sort of drawings of the plants. These are all color photographs of the plants. It's very dense with them. It is on newsprint, on not glossy pages. And I feel like the combination of dense color photos, but on newsprint instead of glossy pages, is maybe a little bit of a rare combination.
Yeah, I think so, but I like it.
I do. I also like it. Yeah, I mean, I think the overall impression's really good. I like that the header for each section, it's very functional. Maybe it's among the better ones I've seen. Like if you go to any particular vegetable, I'm just looking at the tomato header right now. It's in a box and has a chart that contains some like quick information about each type of plant, including the soil temperature for germination, the days to emergence, the seed depth at which you should bury them, the soil temperature, the plant spacing, the row spacing, the minimum germination rate, the life of the seed, the seeds that you would get per fraction of a gram, and the fertilizer needs that it has. And I think like visually, that's a very quick way to scan through the catalog and decide if you think you're able to grow a thing or not, like how it would fit into your design for your own garden.
Yeah, I agree. That's really nice to have all of the growing information summarized at the beginning for each category. Well, the other thing I was going to say, besides cucumbers and melons, is that I would like to start growing strawberries again. We had strawberries back in North Carolina,
right.
And that was honestly one of the best, I think the best items in the garden.
Yeah.
It's always delightful to have a fresh, perfect strawberry straight from the garden.
And we grew sort of 2 residences ago. You grew. This is when I met you. You had these in your garden. Of course, at the residence we then moved into, when we started this podcast, we had wild strawberries that grew throughout our yard.
Yeah, but actually I moved some of the strawberries we had at the first house to the second house. It's just that strawberry plants are at their maximum productivity for years 2 and 3, and then you're supposed to replace them. But again, I kept thinking, I'm going to graduate from grad school any year now. Like the first year that you have the plants, they're not very productive. And in fact, they usually recommend that you pinch off all the flowers and don't take any fruit so that the plants get really strong. And then you get lots of fruit in the second and third years. So they were already waning. And so we weren't getting as heavy a crop of strawberries. But I never wanted to invest in new plants because it didn't seem like I was going to be there for 2 to 3 more years.
The real fantasy is owning our own property so we can actually plan and enact a long-term strategy.
But now we're in a climate where the strawberries should, if we get an ever-bearing strawberry, so now we know, or we expect to be here long enough that it is worth it to plant new strawberries.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to get some new strawberry plants and treat them well. Maybe let ourselves get 1 or 2 strawberries this year and count on a more bountiful harvest next year.
Cool.
So we've got some longer term plans.
Let's read a few strawberry descriptions, maybe some other berries. Strawberries look like they're on 135.
Yeah, and they only offer 2 strawberry types as plants. And then they have a few more that they offer as seeds. I am pretty nervous about the idea of growing strawberries from seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I anticipate ordering bare root plants.
Mm-hmm. Let's read the 2 that are plants first, then we'll go to the seed offerings.
Albion, our go-to ever-bearing strawberry. Albion produces very large, deep red, conical berries with firm, deliciously sweet flesh. Give these plants a little extra space for largest berries. Good disease resistance.
And then there's the Chandler, which is not an ever-bearing, but is a June-bearing plant. The description is, enjoy excellent harvests of luminous, very large, glossy red fruit with a succulently sweet flavor. Vigorous, adaptable plants are reliable producers of these wedge-shaped berries that are delicious for enjoying fresh and firm enough to freeze well. Now that we have this chest freezer, we can really save stuff like this for when we're at risk of scurvy in the wintertime.
I've never grown enough strawberries that we couldn't just consume all of them immediately, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah. I mean, unlike some, if you're growing a squash, you don't harvest it and then gobble it up immediately. But with strawberries, it's pretty hard not to just eat everything right away that you get.
And do you understand the difference between ever-bearing and June-bearing? I mean, it seems like it's in the name, but...
Yeah,
the June-bearing ones...
I get it, but why don't you explain it?
The June-bearing ones produce one big crop all at the same time,
sure.
Which is why they're mentioning that you can freeze them.
Uh-huh.
In case you would think, well, if they all ripen at once, I won't be able to consume all of them.
Right.
They're letting you know you can save them for later.
Mm.
Whereas the ever-bearing ones will produce fruit all summer, which I think will be particularly great here because we have long summers. I hope it works out the way I want it to, but we should get consistent strawberry harvests over several months.
Cool. What about the ones that you can buy as seed?
Deliz.
As a registered trademark sign next to it, and it's spelled Delizz.
It's an F1 hybrid. The very first strawberry variety to earn an AAS award, and no wonder, it's magnificent. Amazingly easy to grow and so delicious, the fragrant red conical fruit has the richness of a wild strawberry, but in a big 1.5-inch berry. The plants are compact, deep green, and attractive enough to display in hanging baskets or planters. A day-neutral type, Deliz will begin yielding in summer and continue until frost.
And the AAS award is an All-America selection, incidentally. I'm on the All-America Selections website where you can look at all their winners. I don't know what kind of body that is.
I don't know.
We'll come back to that.
And that day neutral thing, that's the ever-bearing one. And it means the ratio of bright daylight to... So I think we think of it as daylight to nighttime.
Uh-huh.
But I think the way, if I'm remembering my plant physiology from college correctly, which I may not be, the plant is actually perceiving the ratio of red light to infrared light.
Oh, very cool. All right, then there's the Rainbow Treasure, which is pretty enough for placement in flower beds, containers, and hanging baskets. Rainbow Treasure is a flowering ground cover with multi-hued, white, pink, and deep rose blooms. That sounds great. The picture looks great. I'm sorry, I haven't finished the description. I'll continue. Its creeping habit lends itself extremely well to fill in around perennial plantings as well as covering spaces between berry bushes and other fruiting plants.
Yeah, I agree. That's a beautiful plant. I love the different hues of blossoms on the plant.
Yeah. I mean, what other plants, this may be a thing to research, but are in the pantheon of things that produce good, delicious fruits that we love, but also have beautiful flowers? Like, you could make a case for planting this for its flowers also.
Yeah, well, I would say actually, we talked about planting citrus at the beginning of this. And a citrus tree is classically something that has beautiful foliage, beautiful flowers with a great scent, and then also produces fruit. And we're certainly in a climate where we could
Yeah, we should try
give
at
it a
least.
try. I'm always a little nervous because especially in this yard, we have a stark choice between excessive sunlight and low light.
Yeah.
We don't really have an ideal garden spot where we get lots of good, morning light.
Do you think we could plant something on the side of our yard, partially under the Spanish moss cover?
Maybe we could think about it. If we got a lemon tree in a big pot, for example, we could move it around the yard and try to find a good spot for it.
That's true, yeah. But I guess we haven't reckoned with the fact that our yard does expand over on the side fairly far. And especially if you were planting a tree, it seems like it might accommodate that.
Yeah, I would say, though, over on that far side, there's there's sort of a garden that I guess belongs to the neighborhood that people come and take care of. And then there's a creek area where lots of children play.
Yeah.
So I would be worried.
Little yard kids.
Yeah, I would be worried about putting something too far over there because I'm not actually sure where our property line ends.
Fair enough. You want to read the last strawberry they have?
Italian Alpine, open pollinated. This Italian ever-bearing strawberry produces aromatic, delightful miniature berries the size of the tip of your little finger. The plant's compact growth habit produces few runners, making it an excellent edible ornamental for rock gardens, pots, and footpaths. Like wild strawberries, these deep red berries are more flavorful than their full-sized cousins.
Pretty good. I think we should also read a few melons because we talked about them. Those are on page 60.
All right, let's read from some cantaloupes.
Sure.
Athena, F1 hybrid. This proven cantaloupe is a bestseller and a favorite among gardeners and growers across the U.S. Athena consistently delivers early yields with dynamite flavor. The 6 by 8 inch fruit weigh 5 to 6 pounds, are coarsely netted, and have a scrumptious, bright orange flesh. Athena's superior disease resistance helps keep the vines producing all season long. Pick at full slip for best quality and flavor. Stores exceptionally well, too.
So this is the second description we've read that has the word scrumptious in it, which I'm suddenly realizing I'm shocked that that word is not overused in a lot of catalogs. We've encountered it fairly rarely, but it seems like it would be very tempting to use that word. I'm going to read divergent, the divergent cantaloupe, which does not seem like, I don't know, it's a bad name. I think it's a bad name. A hands-down favorite in our melon trials for its irresistibly sweet flavor. Light netting gives this melon the look of a gallia, but the thick layer of succulent orange flesh is all cantaloupe. Widely adaptable, Divergent performs extremely well in shorter seasons or regions with cool nights, producing an average of 2.5 to 3.5 pound round fruit per plant.
All cantaloupe, baby.
All cantaloupe.
How about sugar cube? F1 hybrid. Coarsely netted, round, 2-pound fruit have juicy, deep orange flesh with a tremendous 14% sugar content. Add an extended shelf life and you can keep these sweet, rich morsels close at hand for a personal-sized treat anytime.
Mm-hmm.
Expect to have a plentiful supply as Sugar Cube's unprecedented disease resistance keeps the reliable plants consistently productive.
Wow, great description.
Damn, that sounds good.
Unprecedented disease resistance.
I'm sold.
Yeah, sometimes I see in the same catalog you'll read, has fairly good disease resistance. That's when you know it is not resistant to diseases. You have to read something like unprecedented disease resistance to feel confident in the disease resistance of your plant. All right, before we leave melons, though, now that we've shat on it, I gotta read a honeydew description. So this is the moonstruck honeydew. We are completely over the moon with this honey-flavored melon. Unlike any fruit we've ever grown, this Japanese no-net honeydew sets itself apart from the rest with its radiant white skin, delicious pearly white flesh, and early maturity. A unique taste experience, the smooth flesh is more tender than honeydews and boasts a 12 to 16 degree brix. I don't know what that is. Brie? Brix.
It's a sweetness.
Moonstruck's globe-shaped fruit reach 7 to 7¼ inch across and 5 to 6 pounds each. A superior choice for short and long season gardeners. So the lady doth protest too much. All right, and then before we go, you wanted to read a mushroom description?
Yeah, just thinking about what can we grow here well, potentially, that has been a challenge in the past.
The wettest things. The things that need the wettest environment.
And I have been thinking we should maybe make another try at growing mushrooms because we're living in a place that is constantly fairly warm and fairly humid.
Yeah.
We could end up with a moldy mess, but
Sure.
in theory, the climate should be right for keeping mushrooms happy.
Well, we tried to grow mushrooms years ago. We grew them at the same time as a friend of ours. And I think we got spores from the same place, but hers worked well and ours were shitty. So I think we need to recover from that.
Well, so they've got indoor growing kits for oyster mushrooms, lion's mane mushrooms, and shiitake, which they're listing as indoors, though typically they take a couple of years and people grow them outdoors. But maybe they have already consolidated their mycelium or something when they send this kit to you and they're ready to go. But the one I wanted to read is one that it's not an indoor kit. It's meant for growing out in the garden.
Okay.
And it's called Wine Cap Mushroom Kit. Stropharia rugoso annulata. Meaty wine caps emerge with a rounded, Cabernet-colored cap and develop to an enormous size, up to a foot in diameter,
Ooh.
earning them the nickname Garden Giant. We enjoy them when they're young and tender, but the larger size fruit are excellent on the grill. Culture of these marvels is relatively simple as they thrive in a variety of media, including hardwood chips, leaf litter, grass clippings, and straw. Locate them in the garden among leafy veggies or rows of corn. This variety breaks down the mulch and makes vital nutrients available to the neighboring crops. Wine caps produce each spring and summer for up to 3 years, and you can also transplant established mycelium into fresh mulch in new garden areas.
I mean, that sounds great. Up to a foot in diameter and is good for your garden otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are growing this as sort of a companion. That's the vibe I get from this description. I've actually never had a wine cap mushroom.
No.
Have you?
No, not at all.
So I read that and I thought, wow, that could be fun. It sounds both dramatic and cool.
Yeah, let's do it. And if we're worried about those terrorizing yard kids stealing our vegetables, then maybe they're being interspersed with mushrooms will deter them.
Well, it certainly will have like a witchy vibe.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, if you are so inclined, you can elect to follow us on Twitter at @CDBusiness or on Instagram at CDBusinessPod. We posted our first video content there where we discussed artificial Christmas trees this past week, if you want to check that out. You can also email us at cdbusinesspod@gmail.com. If you'd like us to talk about a particular catalog, please let us know. If you leave us an iTunes review, we'll of course be delighted to read it. And assuming it's not a nasty ass honeydew fucking melon, you should eat your vegetables.
We're all just doing the best we can.
Speak for yourself.
It's CD business. It's CD business. Boring talk about seeds, CD talk between boys. Dynamic chatter about ovules and spores. We'll dig a ditch and we'll moan and split the difference. It's CD business. It's CD business.